Be talking about today. I'm sorry. What I'm going to be talking about today is making your own scale rope. Now, granted, believe it or not, I am no professional at making rope, but I've got some pretty good results from what I'm doing. So I thought it'd be a really good idea to kind of share with the group just so that they can see what I do. If it's something that you're interested in, please feel free. I'll be more than happy to help you get started, help you make rope, anything like that. Just to kind of start some of the references that I was using for the terminology and things like that. The first one, this is one that's been out there for a long, long time. I don't know if they can see it. It's called the Young Sea Officer's Sheet Anchor. And it goes into the terminology about the different styles of rope, how it's used, how the rope is treated for your standing rigging and things like that. Another one, this one is on sale in our website. It's called The Arts of the Sailor, another really good reference for all of that. And then finally, the Marlin Spike Sailor, all good references. Also, as I was kind of getting ready for the presentation, I was kind of looking online, and I'm really thinking about getting it. There's another really good four-volume set of books by David Steele. It's on the practice and elements of the sail making, mast making, and naval tactics. But the third volume in that goes through all the rigging that's put on a ship, and that's from some of the pictures that I've seen of it that's in there. That is a super reference on the rope making, how it's treated, how it's used, all the different aspects of rigging a ship. Also, another really good reference, if you've never seen, how many of you are familiar with a lady by the name of Ola Bachvarov? Okay. She's got a good video out there where she uses some of the thread that I have here to make her up. All the rope that she uses in her models, she makes herself. So, and if you've seen some of her videos and look at the rope that she uses, it is just some fantastic looking stuff. And then also there's some other YouTube videos out there. There's a plethora of videos out there about making scale rope.
Dr. Sarah also has a good video too.
Right. Now, in fact, actually, one of the rope walks that I have is the one that he makes. Now, a lot of what he does, he most of the time doesn't do multiple threads per strand. At the most, from what I've seen of his, what he makes it is maybe 2 threads per strand, and he just uses different sizes of thread to make the different sizes of rope. Just for the demonstration today, I've got one where I'll be using some cotton machine quilting thread, and I think there's like 7 threads per strand in each one of these, and I'll kind of get into that a little bit later on. To kind of get into some of the main 3 styles of ropes that were used on a sailing ship. The first is called hawser laid rope. Essentially, it's a 3-strand piece of rope, and to vary the size of the finished rope, all you do is vary the number of threads in the strands. Each of the 3 strands has an equal number of threads in it to be spun into the strands. The next type of rope is called shroud laid rope. This is a 4-strand piece of rope. Again, the number of threads in each of the strands are the same, and again, the number of the number of threads. You just vary the number of threads in the strands to get the different sizes of finished rope. The main reason for the difference between hawser laid and shroud laid, typically hawser laid was what was used for all of your running rigging. It was able to kind of stretch a little bit, could be used quite a bit, and was very useful for your running rigging. Having the 4-strand rope for shroud laid rope, and that was used for all of your shrouds and stays. The reason for that is the shroud laid rope didn't stretch as much as the hawser laid rope, and therefore was better suited for using in your standing rigging. Okay? And then the third style of rope is called cable laid rope, and was mainly used for your anchor cables. And essentially, to make a piece of cable, you would take 3 pieces of clockwise spun hawser laid rope and then twist those 3 pieces of hawser laid rope into an anchor cable. One of the things I should have done before I started is I'll go ahead and actually that's a piece of cable laid rope. I'm going to pass that around.
Go ahead. Put it in front of the camera.
Okay. Is that? Can you see that? Okay.
Yep.
Okay. That's a piece of cable laid rope that I've made, and then I've got some other samples. I should have started these around also. I've got some of the shroud laid and hawser laid rope on some sample cards. So you can go ahead and kind of just start passing those around just to kind of see a little bit of some of the stuff that can be made. But yeah, again, also, one of the things too, when you're making your scale rope, you need kind of like a conversion chart so that if you know what the full size ship, the diameter of the rope was, I've got a conversion chart that you convert it to a scale size, and this is basically from 1/48 scale down to 1/96 scale. So I'll go ahead and pass those around as well, and these are for your guys to keep.
Is diameter based off of the?
Well, now, originally they went by circumference of the rope.
General circumference.
General circumference, so all you do is divide the circumference by pi to get your diameter. And then from that, you can use the conversion chart to fix. So, like I said, when you go to David Steele's book on rigging, it may say that your lower shrouds should be a 12-inch circumference. And this is just an example. The lower shroud should be a 12-inch circumference. You go to here, you divide that number by pi, comes out to about a little over, probably not quite 4 inches. So whatever scale you're working in, you can convert that 4-inch diameter down to the diameter of the piece that you need to put on your model. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. And also from what I've gathered too is typically on a sailing ship, as the shrouds went up from like the lower mast up to the top mast, top gallant, the shrouds actually got smaller as they went up. So, and again, that would be using David Steele's reference for that would give that's a fantastic reference for a lot of those rigging sizes and things like that. Now, kind of back to the cable laid rope a little bit. I've heard and I've seen some blogs that say cable laid rope may have been used for like the lower shrouds on something like the HMS Victory, the really big line of battleships. But I can't find anything that really confirms that. I can't find any pictures. So for what I'm presenting, for your shrouds and stays, always use your 4-strand shroud laid rope. Now, kind of a caveat to that, in a lot of the scales that you're working in, the visual difference between hawser laid rope and shroud laid rope is almost negligible. So if you really wanted to, you could really get away with using the shroud laid rope for all of your rigging. Just you need to change the color. And if you kind of noticed, the shroud laid rope that I have here is actually a dark brown, not black, which would have been more the proper color for your shrouds and stays. The reason for that, I'm sure you guys are all aware of, is all of your standing rigging, they would treat with pine tar as a preservative. So that would give it the darker color to it. Let's see, what else? I think that was about it. What I was going to do for right now is go ahead and give a demonstration on actually making some pieces of rope with the rope walks that I have here. Just equipment that you might want to get is your main piece that you're going to need is the rope walk. The two that I have here, the smaller one I actually bought, I think, at an auction here for about $5. It's the one that Model Expo sells. One of the things that I've done to modify it a little bit, originally it uses a hand crank to turn it. I've actually modified it so I can use my battery-powered drill to turn the threads and stuff. The other one that I have is the one that's sold by Siren Ship Model Company. Very good. This one has the option that you can do either 3-strand or 4-strand, depending on how you want to set it up. That's up to your preference as to how you want to do it. But both of them work very well. The one nice thing about these is if I want to make a really long piece of rope, I can spread the headstock and tailstock as far as I want to, make as long a piece of rope as I want to, and then just, when I'm done, unclamp it and put everything away. Another one, it's a little bit fancier for the rope walk. Let me kind of get some of the parts and pieces real quick. Some of the fancier ones that I've seen online actually use an electric motor to drive either end. But this one kind of has here, this has the motor for the tail end. Let's see.
Did you make that yourself?
No, actually, Ron had this.
And I got it from Fred.
So,
I don't know who made it.
but
John, do you remember who made that?
Unless it was Jack's.
That's what I was thinking.
and then
It's
it
on
has,
those tracks, it's probably Jack's.
yeah, it actually runs on these tracks, but again, the downside of this one is that you are limited to the length of rope that you can make. But again, it's up to your personal preference as to what you want to use for a rope walk.
The tracks all go together. So
Right,
you can use all 3 of them, make a pretty good sized rope.
Right. But again, like I said, with these here, I can spread them as far apart as I have space to mount them and do all that to make a piece of rope. Yes, sir.
You gonna do a demonstration on that?
Not on this one, I'm not. I'm just going to do these here right now. Because I think from what Ron was saying, the motors on these aren't
That
working.
one's good.
Okay.
I have 2 motors. That's the good one.
Okay. Well, I think it's missing the belt that drives it, though. So that's okay.
You're right, the belt.
But so what I'll actually do a demonstration with just these 2 here to do both the hawser laid and shroud laid ropes. And so now one of the key things to remember when you're doing your own rope, when you're spinning the threads into the strands, you have to spin the threads counterclockwise and then spin the strands clockwise to form the finished rope. If you do both of them in the same direction, you're going to end up with a tangled mess. Again, when the original rope is manufactured, what basically holds the rope together is when they take the original fibers to make the threads out of, they'll twist the fibers clockwise to make the thread. Then the threads get spun counterclockwise to make the strands. And then finally the strands are spun clockwise to make the finished rope. And it's that torsional forces that are induced into it as you're twisting it that keeps it from unlaying as the finished rope is made. So.
Kevin, I'm trying to remember what it was. There's well, there are 2 things. First, Chuck Pissarro has stopped making black line now. So you're right about the fact that it's very dark brown. But the other has to do with a S lade and a Z lade. So you've got 2 different.
Right, now your hawser laid and shroud laid are twisted, the strands are twisted clockwise to form the finished rope. When you get into the cable laid rope, since you're taking 3 pieces of rope that are already spun clockwise to make the finished rope, with the cable laid rope, you've got to twist those 3 pieces counterclockwise to make the cable laid rope.
That's what the reference line.
Right, yes, and that's the difference between the Z and the S. So without further ado, I don't think we can kind of,
I can bring this up closer.
make sure I've got this going in the right direction here. Okay. And like I said, what I'll start out with,
What, do you start with those lines tense, or do you slacken them so that
Um,
it's?
That back
well,
so
you-
we
you-
still have his face, and I'll move this one around.
okay, when I initially string the thread onto the rope walk, they're fairly snug. Now, and what I'll do is I'll take the clamps off when I start twisting the threads. As it twists, it will actually reduce in size about 5 to 10%. And then what you're looking for as you're twisting the threads into the strands is that the twist is at about a 45-degree angle to the main run of your line. And then once you've kind of got that, then you've noticed you can stop there, clamp this end back off, and then go to the opposite end to start twisting the strands into the finished rope. Okay? So hopefully you can see that. Now, like I said, I'm kind of I don't know if you can kind of see. It's kind of hard to see because of it. Like I said, this is actually the easy part of it. The most time-consuming part of this is actually putting the threads on the rope walk.
You don't count the number of turns?
I don't.
Okay.
I kind of do it like a visual reference.
Correct me if I'm wrong, I remember you're looking for the twist to reach something like a 45-degree.
Right.
Is that right?
Yes. Which, let's see.
So the tension you're holding determines that angle then, I guess.
No, how many spins?
Well,
but
it's how many times you actually turn the.
but how much
thread.
tension will
Which that
determine
looks-
how hard or soft the rope is.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that looks pretty close right there.
So if you, yeah.
Back down to this end, kind of do the same thing.
Do you need to keep those ends? Or?
Yes, you need, because what, that end spins, twists the threads into, and you can kind of take, if you take a really close look at it, you know, you start out with the threads kind of being individual threads, and now you've got an actual strand where the threads have been twisted into the strand here. Okay, and then now what I'm going to be doing is twisting those threads to make the finished diameter piece of rope. Okay.
Could you have done the same thing at the other end by reversing the drill, or is there something
No.
different about the two?
Well, okay, if you kind of take a close look, that has gears on that end that again twist the threads into the strand. This one, this piece just rotates.
Yeah, I couldn't see both.
Yeah, this doesn't have any gearing on it. This one just rotates to twist the threads into the strand. And one of the things I forgot to bring up here with me, need to have a pair of scissors. Wait a minute, let's see.
So I've seen rope get made before and they use a mouse. Is there a good reason to or not to use a mouse?
Beg pardon?
I've seen ropes get made before and they use a mouse.
This
Oh, this
thing.
little piece here?
Yeah.
Yeah, there is one. I mean, I've seen it as just a disc that holds them
Right.
apart so that it works deliberately from one end to the next.
Now,
When you make
if
your rope, it started on both ends. in front of
this
the
this one with this type of rope walk, it actually starts twisted in the middle and then works out. The ones that have the motor driven, as you're doing the motor, you would actually use something like this to keep your strands apart as they're being twisted, because on the motor-driven ones, it will start from the gear end or from the tail end and spin it as you're going up. It's just some of the differences between the two types of rope walks. And again, that's kind of a personal preference as to what type you choose. I've really gotten used to this, so I kind of like it. But one of the things I'm going to do when I get home, I'm going to do some work on the one that Ron gave me and do some work on making that as well. So, but once you've got it, and I'll kind of, once I get this cut off of here, I'll show it to you.
So how did you get the 3 strands to go together when you started spinning the other way? Or did that just happen?
Yeah, well, if you kind of take a close look at this end, this is where the 3 strands kind of tie onto it.
Right.
And this piece, this disc rotates, and that's what twists the strands into the finished rope.
I know you did the initial spinning in the counterclockwise direction. You still had 3 strands there.
Well, I had, yeah, right. I took all the threads.
But then did you tie them off down at the other end?
No,
You didn't need to.
you don't need
It had
to.
tension
Right.
on it.
With the tension that you hold on it, it doesn't need to.
Strands, and then all of a sudden they were joined together. I didn't see how they came together.
Okay.
And this end, the hooks
Yeah,
are spinning.
Yeah, the hooks on this end spin
Okay.
to twist.
I got it now. Okay.
Are you gonna talk about what thread you're using to make this?
Yes, I will. That was what I was going to do as soon as I. Let me go ahead and do this other piece of the 4-strand, and then I'll talk about. And then also the material that you use is kind of also a personal preference. But
Can you say something about where you get the material?
yes, I will. But what I can do too is this showing up on here on the. Okay, so that's a piece, kind of show the people
A
online.
little bit further away for focus.
Okay, got it.
That's good.
Oh,
That's
What
good.
about there?
Good stuff.
But
Just a tad more.
okay, sorry. About like that good there? Or?
Yep.
Okay. And I'll go ahead and pass this around so you guys can take a look at what I've just made. Actually, what I'll do before I twist the shroud, I'll talk about some of the materials that I use. The pieces that I'm working today, I'm using, it's like about a 30 weight, 100% cotton machine quilting thread. And this stuff, believe it or not, I buy in the sewing department at Walmart for just a couple bucks for a spool of thread. For some of the thinner ropes, I have to use something different because I can't make really super fine stuff with this because it's just a little bit too heavy. If I really want to get into some really, really fine stuff, this is 100% polyester thread. It's made by a company called Gutermann, but it's 100% polyester. And it's called E121 thread, but it's a really super fine thread. And I'll kind of pass this. I think I showed some of the guys. This is a piece of cable laid rope that I made with it that has 63 threads in that piece of cable laid rope. I don't know if you can if that can kind of focus in or not.
Yep, that's focused
Okay.
and close enough.
But
Is there an advantage or disadvantage to using either natural or is it just personal preference?
it's a personal preference.
I've done some research on that. The poly will stretch less, and you can melt the ends if you need to do that.
Well, and then with the type of thread that Chuck Pissarro recommends using, this is an E131 thread by Gutermann. He recommends using a style of thread called Mara, or it's M-A-R-A. What he recommends with his stuff is when you finish twisting it, bake it in the oven at 350 degrees for about 5 minutes to set it in.
Is that a polycotton blend?
No, it's actually 100% polyester.
Is it? Okay.
Yes, 100% polyester.
The poly also doesn't droop with humidity and stuff in your house.
I've never really tried it. So I don't know if it does or not.
Apparently, one of the problems is with poly, you can't glue it. You gotta use
Well,
laser glue.
yeah, you have to use CA glue
Yeah,
for
you gotta use
the
a CA.
polyester.
And I don't know what kind of archival issues there may or may not be, but it doesn't, like you said, it doesn't stretch as much. So that's the problem with linen or cotton.
Right. Well, in fact, Chuck Pissarro, when he first started making rope, was using a linen cotton blend for his stuff. But the trouble that he had is that the manufacturer that made the stuff went out of business. So he had to switch over to I think it was a polyester cotton blend. And then now, I was reading in the blog somewhere, one of the museums in Europe asked him to make several thousand feet of rope using that polyester Mara thread.
Mm-hmm.
So he's kind of gotten into using that as well for what he does for his rope making.
I found a place that says they sell really fine linen thread. It's obviously meant for quilting or lace making or whatever, but it mentions in there, if you're a ship modeler, don't ask me any questions. But I'm curious to see, I'm going to order some when I get around to this stage, just to see how it is. Another problem with linen thread is that it tends to have lumps in it where the different fibers come together. But I'm hoping if it's a really good fine linen thread, that might disappear.
Right.
We'll see.
All right, well, let me go ahead and make up this piece of shroud leg rope real quick, and maybe kind of get a little bit better view of how everything kind of comes together. Go here.
Now, once you've made a line using natural materials, is it still recommended to seal it, wax or something, or do you just?
I just leave it because I've heard if you use beeswax, it tends to attack the threads.
Okay.
Collects dust and whatever.
Yeah.
But there's something called Renaissance wax that museums use for like bronze sculptures and whatnot, and it dries really hard and won't pick up the thread. Then it's just a matter of if you want to do it or not. So with that, I know you have a hard time.
See how his rope walk is walking toward.
Yeah, towards the end.
Yeah, because it's tightening those threads up. There's a phenomenon there where it goes, when it does the other side, it'll go up and then it comes back.
Right.
Can't figure that out.
It's kind of weird, but it's just how the threads act.
Stabilize the board for you.
I'm kind of jumping on here real quick. But yeah, that looks about right. Like I said, this part of it really doesn't take a long time. The hardest part is putting all the pieces of thread on there to get what you want. In fact, the one video that I was watching where Ola Bachvarov was making hers, she said that's the reason why she doesn't sell stuff is she was making a piece of the cable laid rope that had 54 threads in it. So she's walking back and forth like 54 times to thread it on there before she made it. So.
Can you just go back and forth in one continuous loop, or do you have to make separate strands?
I do. Yeah, I do. It's one continuous loop. I'll tie it off at one end and just loop it back and forth on that same set of hooks until I get the number of threads that I
I
want.
think the biggest problem is finding how many you need in order to get the right.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the experimental process is to get the final finished diameter that you want. You have to kind of experiment a little bit and, use maybe like 5 threads per strand, 6 threads per strand. That's mainly experimentation to find out what you really need.
So you write it down?
Yes.
If I wrote it down, I'd lose the piece of paper I wrote it down. Everything's on the computer.
The problem with sand is that you have to use the same diameter.
you have to use the same thread every time you do that.
No, you've got to have a
If
consistent
red diameter,
source.
right, and you use that math, you're left with a
Right.
different size, right?
Oops. Put this out here.
Place your hand when it's draining.
Now,
I was thinking if you built a track,
that,
pretty,
yeah, a lot of the ones that use the track, like what Ron says, they actually do put some pulleys on the back end of it, and again, it's kind of an experimentation process to see how much weight you need on there.
Yeah.
But they use those weights to keep the tension on the rope as you're making it.
yeah. Or you can put a backer board and use some little baby bungee cord.
Sometimes I kind of do over twist it just a little bit, but it kind of works itself out once I.
You don't let them stay or relax at all? You ever worry about that, or?
Well, once I take it off of here, I kind of let it hang and
Okay.
Do you ever,
Fingers.
I've seen full-size rope, they would run it over a post to
Burnish it, kinda?
it's, I don't know what kind of tension it's relieving, but you could see in that post, a groove has been worn from how much they've used it, and it
Yeah.
just kind of softens it. Because it,
What is it in, what is Master Commander? They would take a new rope, rattle it behind the ship for a couple of days, get rid of all that.
yeah, I can just kind of let it hang, and if it really has any residual, it'll sit there and kind of spin out. But that's pretty good.
Yeah.
and, I think I've seen people hang it with weight too.
Well, now,
basically the one.
one of the videos I've seen with Chuck Pissarro when he was still using the cotton linen blend, is he would actually take his fingers and wet the line after he had made it and let it set for a few minutes to dry out.
Yeah, there's not much stress in it.
Right.
Do you have any trouble with fuzz?
Yeah, I'm thinking that's probably why he wetted it, though. If he wetted
It could be. It does kind of knock down the fuzz, but if you really look at this though, it's
I didn't see any fuzz with your stuff.
it's very small.
You get less of that with a poly, right?
Yes, but you can kind of see that.
The poly doesn't fuzz like the natural stuff.
Burn the fuzz off.
Well,
You didn't want to stop.
And I've seen a couple of videos where they do take a lighter and whatever fuzz is there, kind of burn it off.
That, running it over a post might knock some of that off too.
Yeah, I've never tried that. So, but now, once the finished rope was done, especially for like all your shrouds and stays, they did some other preservation things to help keep the rope from basically weather rot and things like that and chafing, mainly for the standing rigging. And that process was called worming, parceling, and serving. Okay. Now the worming, what it does, and I've got a little bit bigger piece of rope here to kind of show it. If I can kind of get it focused in on the.
Let's move this out of the way.
Okay. But if you can see it, what the worming process does is, okay, when you make a piece of rope, it has little channels and stuff between the strands. What the worming does is you're taking smaller pieces of line and filling in those gaps in there to make it a more cylindrical surface. And then what they would do following that, the parceling, is taking pieces of tarred canvas and wrapping around the line as another means of preserving it. And then the final process was serving it, where they would again take tarred line and they would wrap it in the opposite direction and all that to cinch down on the fibers and give it that final preservation. And kind of what I've got set up here, I didn't do the parceling because on a model, the parceling really almost makes the rope too big out of scale. So in some cases, you probably would, for like a really big piece, you'd want to do the worming. In a lot of cases where even some of the smaller stuff, you could probably do the serving without having to do any worming either. It's just kind of a personal preference. You know, when you're making your rope and want to do the serving, it's kind of a personal preference as to whether you do the worming or not. But the machine that I have here is the one that from Siren Ship model. Works really nice. The one disadvantage that I don't like about it is you can't do all the way to the very end of the piece of rope because you've got to find a way to secure each end of it to the machine as you're serving it. So you would have to make a piece that's a little bit longer, and then your scrap is what comes out here and wraps around it to secure it in place. But essentially with this, and I've kind of made it a little bit larger so that it might be easier to see. But on this end, when I started to do the worming, I start with a knot called a clove hitch. And then I put a little dab of glue on there to hold it in place. And then to wrap the thread around here, I've got the thread down here that I'm using for my worm or for the serving. And all I'm doing is just turning the crank here. And then that feeds the serving material around your piece of rope. So make it easier to see. But that's just adding that material around there. And you can kind of see, if you look really close, doing the serving actually compresses the fibers of the rope and also makes it more impervious to water and chafing. And I was hoping to have the screen working. I found a really good picture. It's on the Siren Ship Model website again of the Revenue Cutter Cheerful, where it shows all the rigging around the lower yard and top mast, and it shows all the serving that's been done and everything like that that was used for the protection on it. But again, you know, it's just, this is very easy to use. The key thing with this is just making sure that this piece of rope is fairly tense. It just makes it easier to turn to put the worming on it. And then once you're done, finish it off with another clove hitch. And then if you want, you might want to put a dab of glue on there just to hold things in place. Okay. But again, like I said, this is the one that I bought from Siren. Works simple to use, simple to put together, easy to use. Unfortunately, I really haven't had to use it a lot, mainly just doing some demonstrations, but I'm looking at the tugboat that I'm working on is a 1/32 scale, so I may do some serving on it just to make it look a little bit better. Are there any questions on what I've covered today? And if you happen to think of some questions afterwards, next meeting, please, I am more than happy to get with you guys, help you get stuff set up, help you make the rope. I am more than happy to do that for you guys.
What's the longest piece you've made?
The longest piece I've made, unfortunately, I only have a 16-foot piece of 1x6 at home, and that's what I mount these to. So it's been about with the shrinkage, it's been about a little over 14 feet long. Because otherwise, I just don't have the space in my house to spread it out any further than that.
I'm trying to remember. I think Mystic has got a rope walk.
Yes.
Well,
and it's what, several hundred feet long or something.
It's a whole moving.
Actually, another thing I was looking at is the rope walk at the Chatham Dockyards in England. Their ropery is still working because I think they supply the cordage to a lot of the museum ships. Their rope walk is a little over 1,300 feet long. But they make all the cordage for all the museum ships.
The thing is, they make it to a certain length, which is I think it's a certain number of fathoms, which is like 7
Right.
feet or something.
Right.
And the end of the asphalt was like 1,000 foot, you know, and they end up at 720 feet
Right, right,
to give it that length that they need
right.
or want, that whatever, for many fathoms.
Right. And I think it was
I
all,
saw that thing. And in the old days, they used to manually.
right, but now all of their equipment's motor driven, yeah, but,
And it makes one hell of a dust. It makes one hell of a racket.
yeah.
It makes a lot of dust.
If you go into a modern telecommunications cable plant, which is basically the next generation rope maker,
Yeah,
they're infinite long. I mean, they make 15-kilometer cables.
right,
And it's only limited by the weight of the reel taking it up and how you can handle it. So I'm waiting for somebody to come up with applying that kind of technology to something like this where you can take it
now,
up under a wheel.
there are some rope walks out there that you would initially spool the thread onto some thimbles. The only disadvantage to that is you can only do one thread per strand. You can't do multiple threads per strand on those machines. That's the only disadvantage of those things.
Yeah, if you serve it through a disc with holes, and that
That's what
disc
they use.
sticks,
Yeah.
you know, that gives you,
They
and you
take
can
it up,
continue to pull off the
that
hole
sets
as
it.
long as you keep your tension.
Right.
But like he's saying, then you have
Any
to,
other
you have
questions?
to back that all up again.
Yeah.
And then serve those back through the same, thing with bigger orifices to go back again.
Right.
So you could do it that way.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Good talk.
Very good. All right.
Excellent.
Really good job.
I'll have a bunch of questions in a few months when I get ready to make my own.
Well, please email me, call me, whatever.
Orders of the certain machine.
Go ahead and stop this.